3 hours of sinister rainy night terrors. Discover the haunted secrets that were revealed alone. The rain battered down like an army of fists, each drop loud enough to drown out the whispers of the night. Lisa arrived home, soaked through, the chaos of her day clinging to her like a wet sweater. After an exhausting shift at the hospital notorious for unexplained disappearances, she sighed with relief, hoping for peace the kind that seemed to elude her as a desperate single mother of 2 young kids. Gritting her teeth against the chill swirling in her bones, she hurried inside, shaking off the rain like an animal. Thunder rolled overhead, a growl from the sky that seemed to warn her of the evening ahead. Tommy and Sarah were still awake, their small bodies tucked under the covers, shadows dancing on the walls as lightning flashed. She whispered sweet nothings, smoothing their hair back, hoping to wash away her anxiety. "Mommy's here now," she cooed, desperate for the warmth of their laughter. Just as her heart began to calm, her phone rang a sound that echoed like a gunshot through the impending storm. Her boss's voice crackled through, urgency lacing every word, twisting knots in her stomach. "Lisa, we need you back. There's been an emergency." She hesitated. Dark thoughts twisted around her mind. What could have happened this time? The whole community buzzed with uneasy stories lately, unsettling tales of neighbors vanishing. But as her gaze drifted to the pile of unpaid bills on the table, fear of being without an income pushed her to agree. She nodded numbly, despite knowing the storm outside mirrored her chaotic life, ominous clouds lingering too long over her sense of security. Outside, the streets were flooded, transformed into ravenous rivers under the dim light of flickering street lamps. She gripped the steering wheel tight, forcing her focus on the road ahead. Yet every flash of lightning revealed fleeting glimpses of her neighbors. Their faces seemed distorted, illuminated just enough to unveil unsettling smiles that sent icy fingers up her spine. Something felt wrong, as if the entire neighborhood was keeping a secret, one dark enough to smother. Back home, with the rain hammering on the roof and the soft murmurs of her children drifting through the air, she sank onto the couch, beginning to forget the horrors of the hospital. But when the silence shifted, the doors creaked open without reason, and toys lay scattered across the living room as if moved by unseen hands. Dread gripped her heart. Whispers echoed through the halls, with an urgency that begged for attention. Breath caught in her throat as she returned to the living room, her eyes widening. A message scrawled in what looked like smeared paint on the wall struck her like a lightning bolt. "They are among us. Trust no one." Panicked, Lisa grabbed her phone, dialing the police only to be met with a dismissive dispatcher. "Your neighbors are fine, ma'am. Just a little rain making people jumpy." Their annoyance barely concealed. Her heart raced, fury and fear pumping through her veins. What happened to the disappearances? She croaked, pleading, but the line went dead. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Driven by an instinct she couldn't shake, Lisa stepped outside. The rain soaked her through, but she faced her neighbors, hollow smiles and eyes darting away like guilty children. Something primal urged her to dig deeper. The folklore of the area tugged at her memory, stories of families swallowed whole by the storm, sacrifices to appease dark forces. Dread pooled in her stomach as she wondered if she would draw the line between safety and the sacrifice those tales warned about. Racing back inside, Lisa held Sarah and Tommy close, the shadows closing in as the storm swirled outside. A soft tapping at the window interrupted their whispered fears, and unyielding, rhythmic drumming, as if fingers were drumming from the dark realities beyond the glass. The children's laughter twisted into fear, and in that moment, she knew they were being hunted. The lurking dread, cloaked in the storm, whispered a terrifying question. Would she find a way to save her children, or would they too vanish into the night? The tapping grew louder, a steady beat that echoed through the house like a heartbeat in the stillness of the storm. Lisa's heartbeat quickened in response, pounding against her chest. She pressed her ear to the window, straining to catch a glimpse of whoever or whatever was out there. The rain blurred her vision, but shadows flickered, dancing unnaturally against the walls of her home. "Mommy, what's that?" Tommy's voice trembled, pulling Lisa back into the moment. She turned to the children, their faces pale and wide-eyed, frozen in fear. "Just some rain, sweetie," she lied, her own voice shaking. But as the tapping continued, she felt the urge to confront whatever was outside. Panic clawed at her throat, and she realized she couldn't simply wait. "Stay here. I'll be right back," she whispered and turned away, urging her legs up the stairs. With each step, the wood creaked ominously, protesting her movement. She reached the top and paused, glancing down the hallway where the whispers had started to coalesce into a tangible form, a strange hum that hung in the air, low and unsettling. It was coming from the bathroom, where a dim light flickered. She pushed the door open and was met with the sight of the mirror, fogged over, save for a single word slowly revealing itself. "Run." Her heart dropped. She spun around, rushing back down, desperation clawing at her as she imagined dark figures closing in around her. Her children had to be safe. As she reached the bottom, the tapping on the window had ceased, replaced by an eerie stillness. Thinking of her kids, she bolted into the living room, but the sight that met her seemed to freeze time itself. Sarah was standing in front of the window, her tiny hands pressed against the glass. The child's face was serene, too serene, as though she were entranced. Tommy stood next to her, not moving, his eyes wide and unfocused. "Sarah, come back," Lisa shouted, but her words echoed as if lost in the storm. Suddenly, an explosion of lightning crackled outside, filling the room with a blinding light. For a heartbeat, Lisa's surroundings came into sharp relief. She gasped. Outside, dozens of faces stared back at her, distorted and grinning, framed in a ghostly visage by the flash. They weren't just neighbors anymore. They were something far darker, something lurking and clawing its way into her family. The light dimmed, but the figures remained, their malevolent gazes drilling into her soul. She felt a cold wave of dread wash over her. "Keep away from the window," she screamed, rushing forward to pull her children back. But the moment she lunged for them, something surged inside the house. The air thickened, pushing against her, making it hard to breathe. Sarah and Tommy were ensnared by something invisible, something that tightened its grip around them. "Mommy!" Tommy cried out, but even as she reached for him, his small form felt distant, as if swallowed by shadows. With a desperate cry, she charged forward, heart racing as sheer terror consumed her. She felt a flicker of warmth against her legs, an infernal pull drawing her back, warning her of her perilous choice. But she couldn't stop now. She was losing her children. "Get away from them!" She shouted at the figures beyond the glass, fury igniting within her. The laughter of the grinning faces echoed in her mind, chilling her to the core. Then she realized. The whispers, the writings. They wanted her to trust no one. In that chaos, one face stood out from the others. One that seemed familiar, a neighbor. Their eyes darkened like a void. A sealed omen of betrayal. The door behind her creaked open, revealing an impossibly dark hallway. Lisa's breath hitched. To her left, the window shimmered with fleeting shadows, and to her right was the abyss of the hallway. Two choices loomed, each wrapped in uncertainty. But one thing was clear: she had to act, and fast. What was she willing to sacrifice to save her children? What would she uncover if she dared to step into the darkness that beckoned? With a deep breath, she made her choice. The storm outside roared, and with it, so did the impending terror that awaited. The hallway stretched before her, swallowing the dim light from the living room. Each breath Lisa took felt heavier, thick with dread. Just seconds ago, she had seen her children rooted in place, their eyes glazed and entranced. Now they were slipping away, disappearing into the shadows. The unfamiliar hallway beckoned. Its darkness swirled with whispers, those same haunting murmurs that had danced through her mind. Lisa stepped into the abyss, her heart thumping loudly in her ears. The air was stale, filled with a scent that made her stomach churn. Felt like a warning of what lay ahead. But she couldn't turn back. She had to save them. Tommy, Sarah, she called out, her voice trembling. The darkness twisted around her as if alive, wrapping tight around her limbs. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices urging her to give in, to join them. Stay with us. Lisa, it was a voice she recognized. Laced with poison, a sweet lullaby that stung her skin. Lurching forward, she stumbled against the wall, feeling the grotesque texture of damp plaster clawing at her fingertips. Images flitted across her mind. Fleeting glimpses of her family, laughter, warmth, and then a face. The neighbor's. But it was wrong. There was something feral lurking behind their smile. Something that twisted the very essence of what it meant to belong. Get away from my children, she screamed, her voice sharp and echoing through the muted void. Suddenly, a crash reverberated from upstairs, sharper than the storm outside. Her blood turned to ice. The children, were they okay? With renewed resolve, she surged towards the stairs, propelled by a mother's instinct. Each step groaned and protested as she ascended, the shadows pulling at her, like fingers trying to yank her back down into their grasp. At the top, she paused to gather her breath, eyes darting down the hallway. It was longer, darker, almost as if it extended infinitely into a twisted nightmare. The sound of a child's laughter rang out, cheerless and cold. It didn't belong to Sarah or Tommy. Lisa felt her breath hitch again, but she pressed on, dread clawing at her gut as fear twisted tightly around her heart. She reached the bathroom door, the source of the ominous whispers. The light was flickering, casting ghostly shadows. "Mommy," came Tommy's voice, a mere whisper, fragile and broken. Lisa's chest tightened. Every fiber of her being screamed that something was wrong. With trembling hands, she turned the knob, and it creaked open, revealing the mirror once again, fogged over. But this time there was more than just fog. Written across the glass were not words, but images, faces, twisted and contorted, their eyes mocking her. Interspersed between the faces were snapshots of distress. Her children's faces transformed, pleading, terrified. Eye in the air hung a chilling prophecy. A promise that if she stepped inside, she might never return. She didn't care. They needed her. "I'm coming," she yelled, charging forward. As she crossed the threshold, the world spun, and in an instant, she was engulfed in a darkness far thicker than before. The air chilled, freezing her bones as she blinked into the abyss. The laughter turned into a deafening cacophony that surged around her, voices from the faces, asking her to join them in a dance of despair. "Mommy, help!" Sarah's voice sliced through the darkness like a knife. Fear propelled her deeper into the unknown. "Stay with me. I'm coming," she shouted, but the voices distorted her words, wringing them like wet rags. She could barely hear herself over the smothering laughter. Fear bubbled into anger. She shouldn't have to fight like this. The faces pressed in closer, laughing and jeering, their glee vicious. But there, through the chaos, she could see a sliver of light piercing the dark, a feeble glow that pulsed in rhythm with her desperate heart. Lisa's stomach dropped. She had a choice to make. Did she run blindly towards the light, or was it a trap meant to ensnare her? As she took a step forward, the echoes of her children drew nearer, mingling with the sinister brew of laughter. "Mommy, mommy, help!" With every ounce of courage, she lunged into the light, hoping desperately it was the escape she sought. What truth awaited her at the end of that path? Was the darkness truly behind her, or was it simply preparing for a more sinister strike? The light engulfed her, a blinding beacon that shattered the heavy air. Lisa stumbled forward, nerves tingling, heart racing. She saw shadows swirling behind her, clawing at the remnants of her courage, as if they wanted to pull her back into darkness. When her vision cleared, she found herself standing in what appeared to be an old, unfinished room. The walls were bare, splattered with flecks of black mold, and the wooden floor beneath her feet creaked eerily with every slight movement. An ache in her gut told her she wasn't alone. "Tommy?" Sarah? She whispered, panic bubbling in her throat. The room was a jigsaw of dread. There were no windows, no doors, only the memory of the family that had once lived here. Their laughter now tainted by the rancid smell that curled around her like smoke. Scanning the corners, she caught sight of something moving just a flicker. "Mommy!" A small voice called from the shadows, pure and innocent. Lisa's heart seized with hope. "Where are you?" she cried out, edging toward the sound. Each whisper of the floorboards beneath her felt like an accusation. She wanted to turn back, to escape into the light, but the voice was pulling her deeper into the room's grasp. "Mommy, please." It was Sarah again, trembling, small, echoing through the dark corners like a whisper lost in time. Lisa followed the voice, desperation warming her blood, but as she moved closer, an awful chill enveloped her. A darkness surged from the edges of the unfinished room, swirling like a tsunami. With each step, it whispered her name, entreating her to stop, to give in. But this couldn't be the end. Not here. Not like this. The voice faded into a moan, and Lisa hesitated, glancing behind her. The light she had followed flickered dimly, dwindling as shadows danced eagerly in the corners. Fear wrapped around her, suffocating and tight, but she pushed onward. "I'm coming, sweetheart," she called, the words like a lifeline tethering her to reality. Suddenly, the room shifted. The walls groaned, bending inward like the spine of a great beast awakening from slumber. Faces appeared, twisted in anguish, mouths opening in silent screams, and the laughter returned sharp, loud, and mocking. It filled the air until it threatened to drown her. They were all around her, the faces of her lost neighbors, the friends who had once smiled without malice. "Join us, Lisa," they sang in harmony, an off-key tune that scraped against her thoughts. "No," she shouted, and defiance propelled her forward. She would not succumb to their terrible chorus. "I will find my children." She barreled deeper into the shadows, following the echo of Sarah's voice, feeling the walls pulse like living flesh. The more she fought, the stronger the darkness seemed to become, resisting her every step. Lisa's heart pounded furiously. The voices morphed into distorted cries that knifed through her like ice, hitting her with forgotten memories and fears. She glimpsed a door at the far end, a slanting shape bordered by a sickly glow. "Tommy! Sarah!" She yelled into the tumult, urgency igniting her limbs. "Mommy! In here!" Sarah's voice rang clear once again, hope in the heart of chaos. Lisa sprinted toward the door, the darkness swirling angrily behind her, every ounce of agony taking form. Time slowed, and she felt the weight of the darkness lift as she reached for the handle. But as her fingers brushed the cold, rusted metal, the shadows surged forward, encasing her in a vice of despair. A banshee scream erupted around her, a chorus of laughter choking her breath. "Stay with us," she could feel them pulling at her, the whispers clawing at her mind. But one thought surged above the rest: her children were waiting. With sheer desperation, she flung the door open, spilling her into another world. But as she stepped over the threshold, the laughter stopped. Silence fell heavy like a shroud, and before her stretched a familiar path, the hallway, but darker, littered with the shadows of what once was. Lisa froze. Had she escaped, or merely stepped deeper into the nightmare? "Mommy!" That voice again. This time, it was Tommy, clearer, crying for her from somewhere within the darkness. She glanced back as the door slammed shut behind her, sealing the ominous laughter within. What had she just unleashed? The echo of her choices loomed. Could she face what lay ahead? Or was this darkness just a reflection of what she truly feared? With her heart thunderous, she pushed forward, every instinct screaming to turn back. Would she find her children waiting? Or would she become another lost face in the shadows? The answer lay in the heart of the night. The hallway stretched out like an endless maw, dark and oppressive. Lisa felt the temperature drop, her breath misting in the air. The faint echoes of her children's voices were laced with urgency and fear. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee back to the warmth of the light, but she couldn't abandon them. "Tommy! Sarah!" She yelled again, her voice cracking against the stillness. The shadows clung to her, sneaking across the walls like vipers, whispering vile things, secrets locked away, fears left unspoken. From the depths ahead, a muffled sound broke the silence. Was it just her imagination playing tricks? Or was someone really calling her from further along the corridor? She peered into the darkness. The only clarity piercing through the gloom was that she was running out of time. Moments ticked by like an abandoned clock. Her heart hammered against her ribcage. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, each creak of the floorboards standing like a shout in the eerie quiet. The shadows shifted, swirling as if alive. And in that moment, Lisa felt something cold wrap around her ankle, a dark tendril pulling her toward the ground. Terror surged through her. She kicked at the ghastly grip, fighting to free herself. "No, let me go," she screamed, her voice ringing off the walls. With an impulse born of sheer survival, she lunged forward, yanking her leg free and stumbling into the next room. This room was different. It felt alive. A sink sat in the corner, filled with murky water that swirled alone without any cause. Flashes of light danced across the surface, reflecting unholy images: a childless face, a laughing woman. For a second, hope sparked within her. Could it be her family captured in the darkness? "Mommy!" The familiar voice called again, stronger, filled with longing. "Where are you?" she pleaded, scanning the room. The walls pulsed with whispers, voices mingling, a cacophony of despair that chilled her bones. She stepped closer to the sink, feeling its hypnotic pull. The images shifted to pools of dread-filled memories of abandonment, darkness, and loss. With a jolt, she tore her gaze away and refocused. "Stay with me, Sarah. Stay strong," she urged, though it felt fragile, like weaving a thread made of smoke. Her heart beat like war drums, drowning out the other sounds. Outside, thunder cracked, distant at first but growing closer, rattling the very foundation of this house of horrors. The shadows grew bolder, creeping toward her in long, sinuous movements. They whispered her name again, a mournful chant that sought to seduce her into despair. The flickering light above her head blinked rapidly, casting an erratic glow across her desperate face. The voices became sharper, commanding, each one pushing against her defenses. "Join us. Stay, you're just like us." "Shut up," Lisa yelled, clenching her fists until her palms pinched white. She could feel the darkness press against her like a living thing, trying to force its way into her mind. But her children's cries tore at the fabric of that despair, tearing through the fog and dragging her back to where she needed to be. Just as the wall of shadows threatened to close in, she dashed through an archway at the back of the room, her only escape. She hesitated but for a heartbeat, sensing an impending doom behind her. Pushed forward, sunlight barely filtering in through a fractured ceiling. "What have you done?" A chilling voice rasped, echoing from behind her, cold as death. Lisa's blood ran cold. "Who's there?" she stammered. It was no longer a question of her children but of the very presence that stalked her now. She pressed on, ignoring the tremors in her legs. Something slid across the floor behind her. Was it a hand? No, just her imagination, right? "Join us." Lisa flinched, barreling into a darker realm, oblivious to the swirling shadows creeping forth behind her like waiting predators. And then she heard it again, a small cry, earnest and full of hope. "Mommy!" Just her children's voices guiding her forward, or a trap set by the lurking evil drawing her deeper into the darkness. Thunder rumbled louder now, drowning her thoughts. Reality twisted, and she could feel the fabric of her will begin to tear. Was she straying from salvation? Or was the path leading her to a fate worse than the void itself? Eyes wide with fear, she pressed forward, sensing the darkness closing in with each hurried breath. What awaited her at the end of this hallway? A reunion? Or a reckoning? The answer would come soon enough, but would it be too late? The darkness enveloped Lisa once more, suffocating and alive, a monstrous entity that sought to crush her spirit. She stumbled through the threshold of the room, her heart racing wildly against her ribcage. The walls pulsed, a slow rhythmic thump that felt too much like a heartbeat. the cold seeping deeper into her bones as she battled against the instinct to curl into a ball and succumb to despair. "Tommy, Sarah." Her voice rose, desperation lacing every word, echoing through the unsettling silence. A pitiful whimper echoed back, barely cutting through the din of her own rising fear. It was Sarah. Lisa's legs moved instinctively toward the sound, even as shadows flitted and danced around her, taunting her with faint whispers of all she feared most. It was a terrible game, one she wanted no part of, yet found herself entangled in her children's lives at stake. "Hold on. I'm coming," she shouted, racing down another long corridor. Each footfall felt like a countdown. The shadows coiled tighter as if anticipating her every move. The air thickened, thickening like fog, and a wave of gloom washed over her. The walls seemed coated with memories, her memories tainted and twisted by the sinister forces lurking just beyond the flickering light. And then there it was again, a soft, indistinguishable voice, almost a sigh. "Mommy." It was an echo from the end of the hallway, where the light flickered erratically, as if it too was on the brink of surrendering to the horror. Lisa pushed forward, breath quickening, her throat dry, each step a battle against the tightening dread as she rounded the corner. The room opened up before her with a sickening gulp, swallowed by darkness, yet glimmers of light danced in the corners of her vision. The ceiling loomed like a vortex, twisting upward as if attempting to escape the evil residing within. "Help us, Mommy, please." Tommy's voice rang out, an urgent plea piercing through the oppressive air. The pull was magnetic. She felt it tugging her closer, each word laden with sorrow and desperation. Yet, even through the fog, she caught glints of movement, shadows shifting in the peripheries, reaching, grasping, clawing at the edges of her sanity. "Stay back. I'm coming," she yelled, though her voice trembled with doubt. She was torn between the agonizing fear of losing them and the terror of what may lie just beyond her sight. Seconds felt like hours, an eternity slipping away as she edged into the heart of the room. The shadows whispered her name, a taunting song woven with danger. "Join us, embrace the dark." The gust of wind roared through the shattered windows, snatching at her clothes and chilling her skin. The tempest outside seemed to echo her fears, urging her to turn back. Yet the voices of her children surged forth, pulling her toward them, spiraling her to the brink of decision. Then she saw it, a fleeting glimpse of light refracting through a cracked mirror on the far wall, blinding and pure. A reflection caught her eye, two small figures, their faces pale but desperate for her, reaching out to her, through layers of darkness. "Mom, we're here. Please don't leave us." Lisa's heart clenched, torn between the looming shadows and the light that promised hope. But then she felt it, the cold tendril of darkness wrapping around her wrist, tugging her toward the void. And she screamed as images flashed through her mind, wasted moments, loss, disintegration. "No, I won't give in." Her fists clenched as she fought against the chilling embrace, instincts flaring and driving her deeper into the enigma. "Mom, help us. They won't let us go." It was a chorus now, pulling at her sanity, urging her forward. As reality twisted further, something within Lisa snapped. Adrenaline surged through her veins, igniting her will. "I'm coming for you," she shouted, and with that, she threw herself into the light, and everything shattered. The air transformed into a cacophony of sounds, crashing waves, piercing screams, laughter that echoed like a nightmare, and Lisa felt herself swept into the unknown. What lay ahead was a darkness so profound. It swallowed everything whole, but she couldn't falter now, with the voices of her children fading. She moved forward blindly, filled with fear but pushed onward by a love that couldn't afford to turn back. Was it truly the last fight against the dark, or just the prelude to the true horror that awaited? She had to know before it was too late. The light consumed her, a blinding brightness that boiled her vision before dropping her into a haze of chaotic noise. Distant echoes transformed into a shriek that clawed at her senses, each sound threatening to pull her apart. For a moment, she suspended there, caught between realms, holding on to the desperate pleas of her children like a lifeline. And then, as swiftly as it began, the light faded, leaving her in an unfamiliar void. An eerie silence settled around her, thick and suffocating. The shadows crept back in, slinking around her, taunting her from sweet corners. But there was something different this time. The darkness seemed hungry. "Tommy, Sarah," she shouted again, though her voice trembled, almost swallowed by the silence. With each calling, dread spread like oil in her veins, staining her hope with despair. Suddenly, a flicker caught her attention. A pinpoint of orange light danced ahead. She stumbled forward, drawn by that flicker like a moth to flame, each step echoing in the oppressive quiet. The air changed, metallic and charged, felt alive. As she approached, the light expanded, revealing a room, but it was no ordinary space. Walls bore deep crimson stains, a grotesque mockery of warmth. What appeared to be words scrawled in some dark substance formed and reformed, the letters quivering as if they twitched back and forth, begging her to decipher them. She staggered, stomach turning at the sight. Her mind screamed for logic, for rational thought to pull her from the surreal horror. "This can't be happening. Tommy, Sarah," she cried, trying to shake off the creeping madness. Then she heard them. Faint whispers surfaced among the desolation. "Mom, please." The sound trembled, falling off and fading before it could sink in. It was like a cruel game, the kind where they were always just out of reach, always just an echo in the dark. Lisa pressed forward. With each step, she felt the sinister pulse of the walls, a tangible heartbeat that resonated within her chest. The pulse quickened, drawing her deeper into the nightmare-esque embrace. A sudden crash echoed through the air, freezing her in place. Heart racing, she turned to find an ominous figure looming at the edge of the flickering light, a silhouette, tall and gaunt, its features obscured by shadows. It emanated a malevolence that chilled her to the core. "Do you want to play?" it hissed, voice smooth and gravelly, like a snake slithering on ice. "Get away from my children," she shouted, her fear igniting a fire within. But the figure only laughed, a sound like cracking glass, simultaneously eliciting terror and a strange, dark thrill. "Join us, Lisa, your children, they love to play." The figure twisted in the shadows, limbs stretching unnaturally. "They're waiting for you. You will see them soon, if you let go, if you embrace the darkness." "Never." She stepped back, but darkness slithered at her heels, closing the space between the figure and her. "Not yet." The figure lunged, and the world around her erupted into a storm, walls shaking, shadows swirling, taunting, chanting. "Lisa! Mommy!" Tommy's voice broke through the chaos, clearer, stronger. She froze, realizing she could still hear them, feel them. They were trapped somewhere amid all this darkness. "Hold on. I'm coming." She turned, ready to dash toward the last flicker of hope. But the silhouette lunged, clawed hands outstretched, and Lisa screamed as shadows swirled, enveloping her in a rush of cold dread. Just before everything slipped darker than black, the last word she heard echoed, a haunting promise whispered against her ear. "Soon, you'll be one of us." The shadows pulled her under like quicksand. Had she become part of the darkness? Or could she still escape to save her children? The tension coiled tightly. The truth loomed ahead. But would she find it before the darkness consumed her completely? The darkness wrapped around Lisa like a shroud, squeezing the air from her lungs. Panic surged through her as memories flickered in her mind, young hands in hers, laughter in sunlight. Now, fear draped over her like a filthy blanket, whispering cruel truths about what she'd lost, what lay ahead. "I won't leave you," she screamed, knowing the shadows swallowed her words, making them echoes of desperation. The pulse of the walls throbbed in rhythm with her rapidly escalating heartbeat. How long could she run? Her feet felt glued to the ground, and the oppressive gloom tugged at her, begging her to surrender. "Mommy!" Tommy's voice rang out again, closer this time, infused with hope but dripping with dread. "Help! We need you!" Fear and resolve converged in her chest. "Tommy, I'm coming!" she cried, forcing her legs to move. She pushed forward, deeper into the shifting shadows that danced around her. The walls trembled, seeming to breathe as she did, but she fought against their sinister pull, Intent on reaching her children, each step she took sent jolts of electric energy through her body, as the air thickened, becoming a heavy curtain. The whispers grew louder now, a cacophony of terrified voices, all crying for her, all echoing within her mind. The shadows began to shift and swirl, becoming shapes familiar yet monstrous, faces contorted in anguish, eyes wide with fear, mouths open in silent screams. "Join us," they breathed, their voices layer upon layer, melding into a tortured symphony that gripped her throat. "Stop," she shouted, pressing on. "You're not real. You can't have me." But inside, doubt bloomed. Were her children really here, or had she fallen into a trap, led by the very essence of despair? Then everything stilled. The voices faded into whispers and the room fell silent, a chilling lull that froze her mid-step. The darkness pulsed, breathing with anticipation. She could sense something lurking, something waiting. The shadows began to part, revealing a door, a jagged, wooden slab with rusted hinges that looked almost alive as it creaked open. A bright light oozed from within, golden and warm, igniting the shadows and casting them away. For a moment, she felt hope, an invitation into safety. But as she stepped closer, her heart sank. The flickering light held the forms of Tommy and Sarah, but they were not as she remembered. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, expressions filled with unfathomable sadness. "Mommy," they breathed in unison. "Help us stay back," she cried out, fear clawing at her. They didn't seem like her children at all. "Join us," they echoed, voices a sinister blend of their own and something darker. "Stay with us forever." The warmth twisted into a scalding heat under her skin. She fought to pull herself away, the darkness swirling hungrily, each tendril a reminder that she was losing herself. With her back pressing against an unseen barrier, she screamed, "I reject you. I choose them." The shadows writhed in fury, lashing out, pulling at her limbs as if they sought to reclaim their prize. Suddenly, the room exploded with bright flashes. Images of the past rushed before her, Tommy laughing, Sarah twirling. The last day they were together. She could feel a thread of connection stretching toward them, and in that moment, she made a choice. With everything she had, she lunged into the light, heart pounding like thunder, stretching toward her children. "I love you," she cried, but the voice of the figure returned, sinister and cold, echoing behind her. "You can't escape, Lisa." The darkness always wins as she plunged through the threshold. The last thing Lisa heard was a chilling roar, a promise that echoed between realms. "We'll see you soon." Had she escaped, or had she sealed her fate in an even darker realm? The light flickered. Would it last? The shadows were restless, waiting for their moment. The light enveloped Lisa, bright but disorienting. She felt weightless, as if she were floating in a sea of warmth. But warmth was deceptive. The promise of safety twisted beneath her skin, like vines wrapping tighter, squeezing her heart. "Lisa," a whisper slithered through the golden haze. It was softer this time, almost soothing. Yet beneath it lay a darkness that cracked like thunder. "Lisa," she blinked, struggling to focus. The light dimmed slowly, revealing the room. It looked familiar yet distorted, hers, but not hers. Walls shuddered under a sky painted in indelible black. Rain pounded on the window in a frenzied dance, the sound a relentless drum. "Tommy? Sarah?" she called, the names slipping from her lips, drenched in dread. Nothing. The chill of isolation clawed at her, digging in with ghostly fingers. "Where are you?" Panic rose like bile in her throat. She staggered forward, the air heavy with unshed tears and muffled screams. A shiver coursed through her as shadows pooled in the corners, retreating from her gaze yet racing to surround her again. They looked alive, twisting and curling, seeking entrance into her mind. Another whisper, this time a laugh laced with malice. "They're not here with you, get away," she shouted, desperation tightening her chest. "Oh, but they will be soon enough," the voice taunted, dripping with sinister delight. She pressed her hands against her ears, trying to block it out. Her heart raced as she scanned the room, searching for some anchor, some spark of hope. A flicker caught her eye. A mirror stood against a wall, tarnished and cracked, reflecting not just her image, but the shadows lurking behind her. They seemed to sway, a crowd built of darkness waiting for her to turn. Turn around, Lisa. The voice echoed, insistent and commanding. Her breath hitched. She wanted to run, but her feet felt glued to the floor. No, I want tea and still you are drawn to them, it hissed, drawn to despair. The mirror twisted, spiraling. Warping her reflection into grotesque shapes, she saw Tommy and Sarah. Their faces now twisted masks of horror. Mommy, come play, they beckoned. Their mouths moving in unnatural ways, eyes hollow pits sucking her in. Stop it. You're not real. You're not my children. She screamed, but the air around her turned icy, thick with doubt. Join us. They sang in unison, a chorus of betrayal. We're waiting. The darkness thickened, closing in. A sudden crash of thunder shook the room, its rumble echoing with the sound of lost laughter. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and in that split second, Lisa felt a flicker of something. Hope? Maybe. She lunged toward the mirror, desperate to escape the visions clawing at her mind. But it was like pushing against a tide. The mirror expanded, pulling her into its depths. She felt herself slipping, caught between the chilling laughter and the encroaching shadows. With a final cry, she shoved her palm against the glass. It rippled like water, shards of light erupting from her touch. Tommy, Sarah, I'm coming for you. But her voice sounded hollow, echoed back at her like a taunt. The shadows surged forward, hungry, as she felt herself being drawn back again into the abyss of despair. Remember, Lisa, the voice echoed, now a breathless whisper with a chilling resonance. You can run, but you can't hide from what's already inside you. Fingers of darkness latched onto her wrist, threatening to pull her under, begging her to join. In that moment, Lisa knew. She was still battling the darkness, and the real threat was not behind her, it was within her. The rain continued to batter the window, a relentless reminder that the storm wasn't just outside. It was in her as well. The mirror rippled again, and the shadows pierced deeper, demanding her attention. What had she unleashed? And could she fight the darkness, or would it consume her? Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, but the end wasn't in sight. Only the vastly approaching silhouettes filled her vision, their laughter growing in strength as she realized that she was not just running from it, she was becoming one with it. With one final push against the relentless pull, she braced herself, knowing that to confront the truth, she'd have to face herself first. Would salvation be found in the heart of the terror, or was she fated to drown in its depths? The shadows tightened around Lisa, a relentless grip of darkness that clawed at her very essence. But deep within her, a flicker of strength ignited, fueled by love and a primal desire to save her children. As the laughter echoed in her ears, memories flashed: a sunlit park, laughter between swings, bedtime stories, and two tiny faces looking up at her with trust. No, she shouted defiantly. You want tea, take me, and you want tea, have my children. The darkness recoiled, hesitating as if her refusal struck a nerve. Taking a deep breath, she focused, summoning that spark of hope. Tommy, Sarah, she called out, her voice ringing clear and firm now. I'm coming. Together, we're fighting this. Fingers of shadows shifted nervously. The mocking laughter faltered, replaced with hisses that curled around her words like smoke. Lisa stepped closer to the mirror, its surface quivering as if alive. She could hear them again, her children, desperate cries calling for her, summoning her back. Gathering her courage, she gripped the sides of the mirror, feeling the cool glass pulse beneath her hands. Stop hiding, she yelled, the pounding of her heart matching the rhythm of her fury. I know you're afraid. I know you're hurting. But I want to let pain rule my family. My love is stronger than your darkness. In response, the shadows recoiled and twisted, a surge of anger emanating from an unseen force, sending a chill down her spine. Yet, instead of faltering, hope surged like wildfire. Adrenaline coursed through her, and she pushed her body against the mirror. It rippled again, light erupting from within, as if her resolve awakened something dormant inside. "Tommy, Sarah, hold on." With every ounce of strength she had, Lisa pressed her palms against the light, launching herself into the heart of it. The darkness shrieked, a cacophony of despair that punctuated her leap, a last desperate attempt to pull her back, and then she was through. An explosion of light flared around her, and she felt a tugging sensation as if she were unraveling. She gasped, arms flailing as she landed hard on a wooden floor, wet and rough beneath her palms. Disoriented, she struggled to regain her balance. "Mommy! Mommy!" Sarah's voice echoed in the distance, clear and vibrant against the tumultuous storm outside. Her heart leapt. "Sarah," she called, scrambling to her feet. The room around her was dim, shadows still dancing at the periphery, but the pull of her children broke through. She followed their voices, desperation pushing her forward, deeper into the heart of what felt both familiar and achingly wrong. "Tommy, Sarah," she cried out again, tracing the sound through doors and halls, vibrant images of her children swirling in her mind. Just ahead, she saw tiny figures, their faces peeking from the shadowy corners. Two small frames darted into the light, and she rushed forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. "There you are. I'm coming." As she reached them, they wrapped their little arms around her legs, warmth flooding through the chill. "Mommy, you came back." "Of course I did. I would never leave you." But egregious shadows lurked behind them, angry mouths twisting into things that shouldn't exist, conjuring the sounds of terror that haunted her. "We need to go now," Lisa shouted. "Follow me." Gripping their hands, she ran with her children, urging them toward an exit, not glancing back at the chaotic shadows that chased them. Thunder rumbled, a once distant storm now echoing in sync with her racing heart. The front door loomed ahead, cracked and warped but promising freedom. "This way," she urged, weaving through the dilapidated house. But just as they reached for the handle, the air around them thickened. The shadows surged, wild and violent, snatching at her children, whispering sweet promises laced with venom. "No," Lisa's voice cut through the chaos. "You can't have them." She could feel their grip, the cold tendrils threatening again to steal her children from her. Yet this time she would not falter. "Mommy, please," Tommy begged, pulling against the darkness. Sarah's small fingers felt fragile against the terror surrounding them. "Keep holding on. We're almost there." And with renewed energy, Lisa pulled her children closer, putting her body between them and the encroaching darkness. Fueled by a love so fierce it burned brighter than any shadow, she pushed against the door, flinging it wide open. Light burst in, swallowing the darkness, creating a sharp contrast, a natural beacon beyond the threshold. The laughter of the shadows trailed behind them, but she could feel their hold start to slip. "Run. Just run." They bolted forward, freedom rushing at them like a tidal wave. With every step outside, the weight of the shadows lifted, their claws retreating, their whispers fading into the night. Rain soaked their clothes, but Lisa felt warmth surround them, filling the empty void that the darkness had tried to claim. Together, they splashed through the puddles, laughter escaping their lips as exhilaration flooded their senses. Each step took them away from fear toward safety. "We made it. We're free," she laughed, hugging her children against the warmth of her heart, never wanting to let go. Once they reached the road, Lisa paused. The shadows lurked at the edges of the property, watching silently, but powerlessness coated them now, like the rain cleansing the earth. "Now they are nothing," Lisa murmured, holding her children tight. "We are everything." As dawn broke, the eastern sky painted shimmering colors, a promise of new beginnings. Lisa looked at Tommy and Sarah, their faces lit with sunlight instead of terror. Together, they turned their backs on the darkness, stepping forward into the warmth of the new day, a resolve and resilience blossoming with each move. But she knew that even if shadows lingered, she would always fight for her children, because love was stronger than any haunting, any terror. There was peace in that thought as they walked away, hand in hand, a family free, finally at last. Make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will chill and thrill you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support, just like Lisa fought for her family. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this emotional ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.